Hi, I'm James Baker. I'm here with my co-founder of Keynote Group, Donna Baker, and we're talking about the 5 mistakes companies make when hiring. Just so everyone understands, you've been doing this for 20 years, give or take?
Close to, yeah. So I first came into the recruitment industry straight out of university when I was 21.
Okay, so a long time ago then.
A few years, yeah. A few years.
Still look okay considering.
Thanks.
So, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I think combined we must be 35 years in the business?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And so yet we still see people make the same dumb mistakes they were making 15 years ago?
We certainly see clients make very similar mistakes over and over again when it comes to recruitment.
We came up with our top 5?
Yes.
So our top 5 things that we see companies consistently do that are essentially basic things that are easily fixed and can be solved without really too much change to what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And the first one is still the age-old judging people by their resume.
The resume.
The resume. So maybe you can talk a little about some of the experiences you've seen and where that's gone wrong for people.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard when you're trying to decide who to employ for your business or for your team, and you're judging them on a piece of paper. It doesn't really give you a ton of context with regards to who they are as a person. You're also really relying on their ability to write a document as opposed to do the job that you're hiring them to do. A great example that always kind of resonates with me, we done a search for a non-profit organization who were looking for their next leader. They were looking for a CEO executive, and the individual that we had identified would be really good, interviewed, thought would be a great fit, didn't have the best resume, and he was actually disregarded first time round by
They said no to him on the shortlist.
They said no to him on the shortlist based on the piece of paper, the resume, which was all they had context with. Luckily, I guess, or fortunately for that individual, I was able to articulate based on the conversations that I'd had with him a little bit more depth into his actual experience, what he'd done, examples, changes that he'd been able to make in his prior companies, convince the selection committee that they should interview him, and they actually ended up hiring him for the job.
Flying. I mean, that
he's doing a phenomenal job. Yeah.
I mean, they're changing the life of every Canadian, and he's the one spearheading that.
Yeah.
So how does an organization, if they don't have us working with them, even get to the point where they can see beyond a piece of paper and even interpret what they're seeing? Or is it a case of they just need to be more open-minded in what they're looking at? I
think you have to look past the resume. I mean, we're fortunate in this day and age. There are lots of other ways to find out information about people. I think it's not taking for granted that people put their best foot forward in a resume. I think historically maybe people did because it was the only way that they could get across their experience. It was the only chance that they had to interact with a potential employer. But these days there's, people have their own blogs, people have their own, Facebook accounts, they have their own following on LinkedIn. There's so many other ways that you can find out more information about people than you can get from a resume. But that takes time. And I think that's sometimes where there's a downfall with clients. It's not that they don't want to do all these, additional things. It's that they don't have the time in their day when they're trying to do their own job to go out there and do all this additional research to find out more.
But if you think back to that person in particular, I mean, I think for us, we could see the trajectory in his career. So he had worked his way in, I think it was commercial banking. He'd moved into the nonprofit sector. And this would have been his first probably true CEO role, or
second leadership role at this level. But it's sometimes hard for people to see the depth of experience as well that people have. I think when you're looking at a resume, a lot of individuals get fixated on title or industry or kind of what they can actually physically see on that page, not what they can see past that page. And I think that's what I really enjoy about what I do, is that I get to kind of dig deep into, what people have actually done and learn more about who they are beyond I'm a manager of customer service. Well, what does that actually mean? Because it doesn't mean the same in organization A to organization B to organization C.
Okay, so basically it's rather than judging people by their resume, it's misjudging people by their resume is probably the big mistake that people are making.
Yeah. It's assumptions based on what you believe or what you know as the individual running the recruitment process. And as opposed to maybe being a little bit more, I don't even know whether it's open-minded, but it's just open to interpretation, let's put it.
Yes, I mean, still the biases we see and people, oh, that company's a bad company or that company's a good company, or I would buy my services from them but not from those. So that person must be a good or bad person. I don't know about you. I still believe that everybody wants to do a good job and they want to make an impact, but there's a lot of people who are simply in the wrong job in the wrong company. Doesn't mean they're not going to succeed somewhere else. So
no, exactly. And one of the biggest ones we get is the jumpy resume. They've moved on every couple of years. Well, if you can speak to someone and find out why, did they move cities? Were they let go? Did the company close? There are so many reasons beyond somebody having jumped from job to job to job that until you dig deep and have those further conversations, a resume just doesn't do it justice.
Fair enough. So if we go beyond that to our next kind of biggest mistake we see, kind of we've got down here not marketing their organization effectively.
Okay, yeah, this is a good one.
So tell us what we mean by that when we're saying not marketing your organization effectively.
So I think, again, clients or any organization really puts a lot of emphasis on their own website or I don't know, whatever it might be, LinkedIn page, Facebook page. These are all great ways to brand a company, but it's actually kind of digging deeper into why do people work there? So it's one question that I always ask when I'm working with clients. I like to go out and ask other employees within the organization, what makes you get up every day? What makes you come into this role in this office? Why are you committed? And you can often find out, the behind the scenes side that companies are not always as good at marketing. A great example, I'm working with a company at the moment in the construction and property space who have been described time and time again by multiple employees as a hidden gem. It's that, you peel back the layers and it's a phenomenal place to work. It's so employee focused and customer focused and community focused. It has so many strong values and strong kind of pull factors as to why the employees get up, drive across town. Some of the employees drive, 50, 60 kilometers a day to work there. But organizations aren't always good at putting those kind of underlying layers forward during the recruitment process.
So you're basically saying rather than just tell people what they're going to be doing and tell them why people work in the business, what it's about, what matters to people there. So it comes back down to those values, essentially, as to what that organization stands for.
Yeah, I think recruitment in the past used to say, I'm looking for a financial controller, and you would list all the tasks of a financial controller. Well, that isn't going to change. You go to, various different organizations, the controller still does the same month-end tasks.
Fundamentally the same across every organization. Yeah.
Exactly. But one of the questions that we always ask when we work with companies is why? Why would somebody choose to do a controller job here over a controller job there? And they're the underlying kind of marketing branding pieces that the organizations don't always tap into. They don't always think about that being important to a future employee.
And that ties into, again, next mistake we see is just the lack of awareness of the market reality or what even their competitors are doing. Like we see this time and time again where people isolate themselves, put themselves in a bubble and forget that the rest of the world even exists when they're doing their hiring. So it's almost a segue from the first one we're talking about.
Yeah. And I mean, we see this especially in newer companies, newer kind of founder-led businesses where there is a passionate individual spearheading the company or spearheading the product, and they really believe in what they're doing and what they're selling and what they're saying. And rightly so, they should. They wouldn't be typically where they are in their journey as an organization without that leadership. But it's forgetting sometimes that, yes, they do have a phenomenal product or a phenomenal idea and a great service, but so do 100 other companies out there. And I think it's, sometimes organizations lose sight of that true, unique kind of selling point. Like, why are they different? But also then tying that into an attractive reason for someone to choose their organization over another company that has exactly the same, growth potential, selling points, career opportunities for someone.
Again, I mean, I think even going back to when we first started, like companies would talk about 10, 11, 12 different things that they're about or they're interested in. I mean, the reality is you only need to be about 3 or 4 things, like 3 or 4 key values to your organization. And when you're talking about who you are, what you're about, you're talking about those values. And, if I'm working for one and let's call it a hospitality business. You're selling rooms, you're doing catering, you're doing food service. Is, well, what are the 3 things that matter to us that somebody should come and work here rather than work at our competitors? So it's those things that make you different. I think that people need to realize that people will make choices. Doesn't mean everybody is right for one organization. There's a handful of people I think would thrive at Keynote if they were working for us, and I think there's a lot of people it wouldn't be right for. And that's okay, as long as we own it and we kind of realize what we're good at and what we're not. I think that's important to us.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It is. I think gone are the days when companies have 7, 8, 9, 10 values or whatever it is. It's 3 or 4 really compelling reasons, and being comfortable saying that there are certain individuals that are not right for our organization. I think that's where, as we've grown Keynote Group, for example, I think we've been very good at being able to identify who is right for our company and who is right for another company in our industry, just maybe not ours. And I think sometimes that's where organizations will misfire a little bit. They find somebody that's got tremendous talent and they want to hire them because they have the skills to do the job. It doesn't mean they've got the skills to do the job within their organization.
Yeah, and again, we've seen one recently where the company was trying to hire basically a magic bullet to solve all of their problems, but the company simply wasn't ready to hire that person. It's like saying, okay, if we're at currently a 60% effective as a business, this person can get us to 100%. Well, they almost need the person to get them from 60 to 80% before they hire the person to get to the next level. And it's almost like an awareness thing to say, okay, we've got to deal with the realities of who we are, where we are, what the market's doing. Otherwise, you're going to hire this incredible individual that simply won't succeed because your business is not ready for it.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's being aware of where you sit within the market today, and knowing that where you want to be in 5 years is exactly where you will be, but it takes time to get there. And it's about hiring for what you need today. And in the short term, I mean, we work in, gone are the days when someone joins an organization and stays for 5-10 years. It just doesn't happen. So hire now with the mindset of in 2 years, we might be hiring again, whether it's the choice of that individual to move on or whether it's our choice as an organization to say they were hired for a role that no longer exists within our business.
Yeah, I mean, we've evolved so dramatically even in 4 years that people who joined us on day one, the business is changed. I mean, we had an incredible lady join us as our first employee.
Yes, yeah.
She's since moved on because the business changed that much. Still an incredible person we think, incredibly highly of, but we just changed so much that we weren't right for her anymore. And we're okay with that.
Yeah.
I think companies need to say, okay, it's okay if we evolve and grow up, and so will our people.
Yeah, I think it's just being aware of their market position today and more short term.
So the last 2 kind of ones we have are both kind of tied very much to the market conditions we're facing as well. And kind of number 4 we had on our list is essentially failing to have a competitive compensation package. And that doesn't mean just money, but it's an overall compensation package. And you're facing this daily right now.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably one of the biggest challenges that I see our clients have day in, day out. And I think it is because a lot of organizations still think about that number. They want to provide a guaranteed salary for people to go home with at the end of the day, which everybody is looking for. But that's one element of a compensation package. I think people still focus on what typically has been the structure. It's base salary, it's RSP contributions, it's benefits, it's number of weeks vacation, which is great. But if you look at the younger demographic coming into the workplace, they care less about those tangible pieces to a compensation package. They want to hear, is there work-life balance? Is there flexibility? Can I come in at 9 o'clock but spend 4 hours working from home on a Saturday?
We hired a marketing guy and he comes into work at 7, but he's not back in till 9 because he goes to the gym for 2 hours. So, but again, he's got that flexibility, and we give him, we kind of rag on him a little bit. But I think you're right. It's the little things, like it might be the fact that you have snacks in the kitchen every single day, and you cater lunches, or you take people away for group celebrations. It's a bigger conversation than just here's a salary and here's 3 weeks vacation.
Yeah. And I think it ties back into that conversation that we had earlier on, which is why would somebody want to work here over somewhere else? And it is digging into those kind of non-tangible parts to a compensation package. I spoke to a client a couple of weeks ago in the engineering space, and they don't pay the highest salary out there in the market. They don't have the benefits package that blows the doors away, but they give their employees every Friday afternoon off. So they close at 12 o'clock every single Friday throughout the year.
Nice.
They don't tell people this, but it's it's such a unique reason to go and work for that company. And it is part of the compensation package, but because it's not a traditional part of a compensation package, companies just don't recognize it. Like you said, the snacks in the kitchen, we have season tickets for senators or whatever it might be. Yeah, the Ottawa Senators, and we give them out to employees every single month. These are still part of an overall compensation.
But you've got to have the baseline though, because I mean, you've had situations even this week where companies are still thinking it's okay not to have any benefits at all.
Yes.
So just a straight salary, 3 weeks vacation, nothing else. And it just doesn't fly in this economy right now. I mean, it's too tight an employment market to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think companies need to step back and realize that they do have to be competitive. They have to be offering a competitive base salary. They have to be offering benefits, whether it's a traditional benefits package, whether it's an employee's whatever it might be. There has to be a way that employees can receive benefits. Not everyone has 2 working adults in their family, so someone there has to be able to support the additional things that you need. But yeah, clients need to realize that or companies need to realize that there has to be a baseline, a skeleton, a strong kind of foundation of
must
benefit.
Be here to play, and if you want to excel, it's up here.
Exactly. But I think it's also being able to identify what is considered compensation, maybe.
Okay. And so then our 5th point is basically companies still expect candidates to be falling over themselves to join their organization. It's like, well, of course they're going to want here, so we can pick anybody. So, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of your experiences there.
Yeah. I mean, there are very few companies, I think, in the world that truly can say that. There might be some down in the US, maybe one, maybe Apple, maybe Facebook, maybe, Disney for the Disney fan, whatever it might be. But there are very few companies that really can stand up and say, anyone wants to come and work here. Someone should be lucky to work here. So I think it's about, again, kind of, it comes back to that why. Why would someone want to work here over any other organization that they could? And I think it's about, I don't know, maybe dropping the ego a little bit. It's about, everyone thinks where they work not everyone thinks where they work is a great place to work. But if you're in leadership, typically within a company, you think it's a great place to work. Otherwise, you wouldn't be working there.
Yep.
But it's about that balance between thinking it's a great place to work, knowing why it's a great place to work, being able to articulate that, rather than just going out with the assumption that, well, this is a great place to work because I choose to work here.
Well, we saw that, and even going back to the point we made earlier about the realities of the market, we had 2 organizations, both startup businesses, funded, that were looking for a CEO in the same city, very similar stage, both incredible boards. One board embraced the fact that, they have to compete for the talent, and the other board basically said anybody should want this job. We can pick anybody. One was successful and is now thriving. The other one is unfortunately struggling because they were never able to truly compete for the talent, and they weren't willing to work hard enough to try and get some to join the organization.
Yeah. I think it's realizing that the industry has changed, and the way people find employment has changed, but the number of unemployed people is the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah.
So you do have to actively attract talent to your organization, whether it's at a CEO level or whether it's at an intern level. You are competing against multiple other organizations and opportunities for employees to look at. So,
and normally, I mean, when people think about that competing for talent, one of the things we see within that mistake is always time. They take too long to do things. And we have an expression we use internally: time kills all deals.
Yeah.
And we still see it. Companies will interview someone and wait 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or even sometimes 2 days is too long.
Yeah. I mean, I have a great example of that at the moment. I'm hiring a senior director role at the moment, and it's been 2 or 3 weeks since the first interview. It's for somebody in the technology space as well. And it is a phenomenal company to work for. They do have a great brand, but they run the risk of losing a potential future employee based on the time that they're taking. And it's, one of the things that we always say when we're talking to clients is that risk factor. Like, eliminate as many risks as you possibly can throughout the recruitment process.
So then if we go back to our mistakes, so the first one being judging people by their resumes. In other words, don't make the mistake or increase the risk by eliminating people too early, too soon. If you think there's a potential they fit, have a conversation with them.
We typically have the, are they possibly right? Could they do, could they, would they, maybe? Yeah. And if the answer is not definitely no, then consider them.
Yeah, all it is a conversation. If you can decide after the conversation what's going to work. So the second one was not marketing their organizations effectively.
Yep.
The third one being basically a lack of awareness of the market and the competitive landscape.
Yeah.
Number 4 is failing to have a strong enough compensation package, like making sure you hit the benchmarks and hit an industry standard and then deciding whether to build on it. And the 5th one is really kind of expecting the candidate to fall over themselves to join you. So there'll be our 5 kind of biggest mistakes we still see.
Yep, definitely.
Perfect. So talking about mistakes, working with your husband, tell us about that a little bit.
It's hell. Don't do it.